how Joe from Homesteadonomics breaks down pallets?
I don't know. How did he do it?
He just takes a sawzall and cuts right through the nails.
Is that what you want to do?
Well, maybe we can use the nails.
Not a bad idea. Yeah, I like to think we could maybe reclaim some of the nails.
This is gonna take a while though. Looks like some of the nails in here have been cut through.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. So have you developed a good methodology yet?
No. I haven't. So we're just using this tool.
Just to like start prying up the board?
Yeah. Well, it gets around the nail really well. And then use the hammer for the rest of the way.
And you definitely want gloves for this, huh?
Yes.
That would be harsh. I could just imagine how many splinters you would have if you just tried going at it with your bare hands. Yeah, I see what you mean about some of them are sawed off. Right? Yeah. That would be difficult.
A lot of them.
Some of these pellets might have went through several iterations before ending up here. Hello everyone, Jim here, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about permaculture zones. I'm going to talk a little bit about what they are, how we're going to be using them currently, and how you might be able to use them. Permaculture zones are a way of, and they can be used for sectioning off your land, but it can also be used for other purposes. It's basically a way of organizing yourself and your surroundings, going from the most intensive to the least intensive. So more often than not, you'll see permaculture zones 1 through 5. Sometimes you'll hear of a zone 0. Zone 0 would basically be your house. It's where you live. That's obviously going to be your most intensive zone because that's where probably you spend most of your time. Now, we'll get to zone 1. Zone 1 would be almost your immediate surrounding, or one of your most intensive zones. Very intensive. Zone 1 is probably where you're going to be spending much of your time if you're not inside the house. This is going to be probably where you have your garden. It's going to be where you're going to make those daily visits. If you have like daily weeding, that's going to be in that area. Zone 1 is where you might have your garden. It's where you might be growing your salad greens, herbs, kitchen herbs. You want that very close, that kitchen garden. It's going to be very close to where you live. Flowers, anything that's going to be very labor intensive. You also want to think about if you're having animal systems in your design. For animal systems, chickens could possibly be a zone 1, maybe a zone 2. Depends on how much you love those chickens. You may want them a little further away from the house. Another thing you might want in a zone 1 is, your tools. You might want a shed in a zone 1, or maybe at the very least maybe a zone 2. But yeah, think of zone 1 as being your most intensive, where you need the most attention. Zone 2 is now starting to get a little less intensive. Still needs a lot of care. It's something where you have to go every other day. Maybe zone 2 could have a greenhouse. It might be a larger garden area, maybe for domestic production, canning, staple crops, multifunctional plants, cover crops. Maybe a little less intensive with the weeding. Maybe there's a weekly weeding out there. but your zone 2 is going to be a little further out than your zone 1. Something where you don't have to go to as much. You also might want shrubs, bushes in this zone. This transitions into zone 3, which could be considered maybe a food forest zone. This is where you want to start to get a lot of your fruit trees, any nut trees. Zone 3 is kind of a lower intensity. It's where you don't have to be there as much. It could be considered a farm zone. Again, maybe zone 3 could be cash crops, but it's where you're probably going to get your larger productive trees. Again, think food forest. Be a great zone 3 to have. Depending on what you might use them for, goats could be zone 3, maybe larger animals, cows, horses, possibly a zone 3. Zone 4, now you're starting to get into much lower intensity. Sometimes you might not even go out to zone 4 for maybe a month or so. Basically, zone 4 might be considered a foraging area. Maybe you're growing trees for timber purposes. Zone 4, you barely ever have to go there at all. Zone 4 could possibly be where you might keep some of your grazing animals, just leave them out to pasture. Now zone 5 is wilderness. You absolutely leave it alone. Just let it do its natural thing. It's basically unmanaged. Animal systems in there is just the natural native animals that you might normally have. Our zone 5 would be, javelina, deer, snakes. Of course, these animals will be in whatever zone that they happen to find themselves in. They're not going to exactly cater to your particular design. Zone 5, even though it's the least managed, it's still very important. It is the zone where you might go to meditate. It's the zone where you go for inspiration. It's where you find nature doing its own thing. And you can go out to your zone 5, just meditate, observe, and you take that understanding and you bring that back to your design. So when you normally think of permaculture zones, it's usually used to break apart your land design. It could be a design around your front and backyard. It could be around your 40 acres. That's usually what they refer to with permaculture zones. But, like I said, you can even use it to design a workspace. Think if you're at your office. You want to have your zone 1 where you have your tools that you most need readily at your available. And then break it down from there. Now, I'll show you exactly how we're using the zones, or what our zones will be currently. Now, that's not to say they will change. I'm sure they're going to change because we do not have a set design right now. The reason for that is because we have not been out here that long. And one of the biggest rules of permaculture, water harvesting, whatever, is observation. Long and thoughtful observation. It is important to get a feel for the land, to get a feel for the seasons, get a feel for how the water cascades around the property, how that flows around the property. Now you can get ideas of how that works, but first-hand observation is key to really good design. So right now we have working zones that we are using so we can get some things production, so we can start growing our own food and stuff like that. A lot of this that we're doing right now could change in the future design when we're looking at doing a holistic land management practice. But come along, let me show you what we're doing right now as far as the zones go, and maybe that'll help make things a little clearer on how these zones might work for you. These are the trailers here. Of course, the trailers here would be, of course, our zone 0. That's where we live. Now our zone 1, we intend to be right around here. The gray water basins right here will be part of our zone 1. This will basically be garden area going between the shipping container and the compost bins. Will be garden area going out about 40 or so feet that way. That's going to be our zone 1 currently. Chickens here because the chickens is something Jessica deals with every day. I would consider the chickens to be in zone 1. Chaska's there right by the gate. Oh, yep, there they are, peeking out. There's our little zone 1 right there. Zone 2. Zone 2 might be considered the shipping container. Normally that could even be a part of a zone 3 maybe. But I keep a lot of my tools there, so I find myself going there quite a bit. Did you see her? Jessica was there. She's hiding. What's up? Showing everyone the zones.
Zones.
Right now you might be in a zone 2.
I'm in the zone.
We got the crew kennel up. What would you say the crew kennel is? Zone 2 or zone 1? I guess if crew's out here, we're out here, it might be considered a zone 1 because he's very labor intensive. Those are our water tanks. Water tanks would definitely be a zone 2. That's where our compost bins are going to be for human manure. Zone 2. Maybe even considered a zone 3. Because we're not going to be spending a whole lot of time out there. I don't really want to be spending a whole lot of time out there. Maybe once a week composting. So that may even be considered a zone 3. But this will be where I'll be building the shed. This will be housing a lot of the solar components, maybe some appliances that we might bring in. So this would definitely be considered part of a zone 2. After that, so we definitely have a zone 1. We have a zone 2. Maybe part of a zone 3. But that's about it right now. Most everything else would probably be our zone 5. Because we don't have plans for that quite yet. So we're just letting nature do its thing out there. Alright, so that was a little bit about permaculture zones and how we're using them right now. Like I said, that will of course change as our design changes here. It's in a flux right now. But I appreciate you watching. Thanks for joining us. Please give this video a thumbs up. Share it with your friends because I'm sure they want to learn some of this stuff. Good knowledge I'm throwing out. And don't forget to subscribe because there's a lot more knowledge coming your way. Plus you got to see how the compost bins turn out. It's going to be awesome.
And you can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye. There's a strike out there?
Well, it probably was there.
A shrike killed a beetle?